The quiet before the Galactic Council chamber hung in orbital silence above Centaurus Prime, a monument to peace built by 1,000 civilizations. Inside, beneath crystalline vaults that stretched toward the stars, Ambassador Sarah. Chen stood alone before the assembled powers of the galaxy. She was small by their standards. Human, fragile-looking. The Council had counted on that. "The decree is final," announced Archon Velis, his 4 eyes unblinking as he gazed down from the high seat. The Archon was old, older than Earth's written history, and his voice carried the weight of eons. Humanity will evacuate the 17 Outer Rim colonies within 60 standard days. The Vraxian Empire has claimed those systems under ancient territorial rights. This council recognizes their claim. Around the chamber, representatives from 50 species watched. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked away. Sarah stood perfectly still, her hands clasped behind her back. She had known this was coming. Intelligence reports had warned her for months that the Vraxians were pushing, testing boundaries, seeing how far the council would bend. She had hoped the galaxy would remember what humanity had contributed, the medicines, the technology, the rescue missions that asked for nothing in return. She had been wrong. 300 million people, Sarah said quietly, her voice carrying in the vast space. 17 worlds, homes, lives, families. You're asking us to abandon them because an empire that hasn't fought a war in 4 centuries suddenly remembers it once owned empty space. Velis's mandibles clicked, an expression of dismissal. Humanity is young. You have been part of this council for barely 2 centuries. You do not understand the delicate balance we maintain. The Vraxian Empire is powerful, ancient, and proud. If we deny their claim, they will go to war. Billions could die. Surely 17 worlds are a small price for galactic peace. Small price, Sarah repeated. The words tasted like ash. You mean convenient sacrifice. A murmur rippled through the chamber. No one spoke to an Archon that way. Sarah turned slowly, meeting the eyes of every delegate who would look at her. We came to you in peace. We followed every law, every custom, every treaty. We gave you our best minds, our resources, our friendship, and now you ask us to choose between our people and your comfort. She turned back to Velis. You're right about one thing. Humanity is young. We haven't learned the art of sacrificing others to save ourselves. Maybe that makes us naive. Maybe that makes us dangerous, she paused. But it does make us certain of one thing. We will not abandon our people. Not for your peace. Not for your politics. Not for anything. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted, some in support, most in outrage. Velis rose from the high seat, his massive form towering over the chaos. Then humanity chooses to stand alone, he said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. This council has spoken. The decree stands. If your species refuses compliance, you will face the consequences. The Vraxian Empire will act, and the council will not intervene. Sarah Chen smiled then, a cold, sad smile that made several delegates feel suddenly uneasy. Then let them act, she said softly, and let the galaxy see what happens when you corner something that has more teeth than you remember. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Wait, called Ambassador Threll of the Caraxian hegemony, his translator struggling with the urgency in his voice. You speak as though humanity has some hidden strength. You are 300 worlds among millions. The Vraxians command 1,000 systems and fleets older than your civilization. This is suicide. Sarah stopped at the doorway. She didn't turn around. No, she said quietly. This is consequence. And then she was gone. The transmission went out 3 hours later. Every human colony, outpost, and vessel received the same message. It was brief. It was clear. And it changed everything. By order of Earth Central Command, all Outer Rim colonies are to implement Damocles Protocol, Authorization Code Omega Black, military assets to full readiness, civilian populations to designated shelters. All non-essential communication with non-human parties is suspended until further notice. This is not a drill. Chen sends her regards. Humanity stands together. The message repeated twice, then stopped. And then, across 17 worlds, 300 million people went silent. No distress calls, no diplomatic outreach, no panic transmissions, just silence. The Vraxian Empire took it as submission. The Galactic Council took it as acceptance. Both were wrong. Lord Commander. Thex of the Vraxian Imperial Fleet sat in his command throne aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, reviewing the tactical display with satisfaction. Before him hung a holographic projection of the outer rim. 17 human colonies marked in soft blue, his fleet positions marked in crimson. "They ran," said his second officer, mandibles clicking with amusement. "The humans posted brave words, but when faced with true power, they scattered like prey." Thex wasn't so sure. He was old, even by Vraxian standards, and he had fought in the last Great War centuries ago. He remembered what real warriors looked like. These humans, they had been too quiet, too organized, but orders were orders. "Begin with New Perth," Thex commanded. "Orbital bombardment. Make it visible. Let the galaxy see the price of defiance." The fleet moved like a crimson tide toward the colony world, their weapons charging, their crews eager. New Perth hung before them, a green-blue marble, peaceful and defenseless. No military stations, no orbital defense platforms. Nothing but farms and cities and people going about their lives. Easy prey. Firing. "Solution locked," reported the weapons officer. "Fire," said Thex. Bombardment lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, New Perth was a smoking ruin. 3 million people gone in fire and ash. The Eternal Dominion broadcast the footage across the galaxy. A message, a warning, a demonstration of power. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions. Voices raised in shock and horror and carefully worded condemnations that meant nothing. The Vraxian Empire waited for humanity's surrender. But humanity didn't surrender. Instead, 48 hours after New Perth burned, something else happened. The Vraxian Second Fleet, 1,200 warships patrolling the border systems, simply vanished. No distress calls. No wreckage. No survivors. One moment. They were there on every scanner, every tracking station, every surveillance post. The next moment, nothing. And in the darkness between stars, something new was moving. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Something humanity had spent 200 years building in secret, hoping they would never need it. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's silence had never been submission. It had been preparation. End of Part 1. The Reckoning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Holographic displays filled the chamber, showing static where the Vraxian Second Fleet should have been. 1,200 warships gone, no debris fields, no energy signatures, just empty space where an armada had patrolled hours before. "Impossible," breathed Ambassador Threll, his scales pale with shock. "An entire fleet doesn't just disappear. There must be some sensor malfunction, some—" "It's not a malfunction," interrupted Commander Rylax of the Centauran Defense Network. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she manipulated the data streams. "We've confirmed it across 17 independent monitoring stations. The Vraxian Second Fleet jumped to attack vector near the human colony of Redemption. They achieved weapons lock. And then—" She paused, her expression haunted. Every ship went dark simultaneously. No explosions, no electromagnetic pulse. They just stopped existing. Archon Velis leaned forward on the high seat, his ancient eyes narrowing. "Where is Ambassador Chen?" "Earth's embassy is empty," reported a security officer. "All human diplomatic staff withdrew 72 hours ago. We have no communication with any human government. Then we send ships to Earth, demand answers." "With respect, Archon," Rylax interrupted. "I don't think that's wise. Not until we understand what we're dealing with." "What we're dealing with?" Velis's voice rose. "They are humans. A young species, barely 3 centuries among the stars. They have no superweapons, no reality-warping technology. Their military is competent but conventional. This must be some trick, some elaborate sensor spoofing." The chamber lights flickered. Every holographic display in the council chamber changed simultaneously, showing the same image. A simple emblem of Earth, a blue marble wrapped in olive branches, and beneath it, a single line of text in 1,000 languages. "You burned New Perth. Now learn why we chose peace." The message held for 5 seconds, then vanished, replaced by live footage. The Vraxian Third Fleet, 500 strong, approaching the human colony of Haven's Edge. Their weapons charged, their formation perfect, their intent clear. And then the space around them changed. Ships appeared, but not like any ships the galaxy knew. They seemed to shimmer at the edges of reality, their hulls black as the void between stars, barely visible except when they moved. Wraith ships, the humans would later call them, vessels that existed partially out of phase with normal space, untouchable, invisible until the moment they struck. The Wraiths didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they released something else, pulses of gravitational force that collapsed matter at the molecular level. Wherever the pulses touched, Vraxian warships simply ceased to be, their atoms scattered across dimensions humanity had learned to manipulate in secret. The Third Fleet tried to fight back. Their weapons passed through the Wraith ships like light through fog. Their shields might as well have been paper. In 6 minutes, 500 warships became dust and memory. The footage ended. The council chamber sat in absolute silence. 200 years, said a voice from the back of the chamber. Ambassador Tavera of the Peaceful Luminari Collective stood, her bioluminescent skin flickering with distress. 200 years humanity sat among us, trading, teaching, healing. They saved my world from the Crimson Plague. They asked nothing in return. And all that time they were building weapons, finished Velis, his voice hollow. Weapons beyond our understanding, hiding them, waiting. No, said another voice. Everyone turned to see Admiral Jackson Reeves, Earth's former military liaison to the Council, standing in the chamber doorway. He was old, gray-haired, with eyes that had seen too much war. He hadn't been seen since the human withdrawal. We weren't waiting, Reeves said, walking slowly toward the center of the chamber. We were hoping we'd never need them, hoping the galaxy would be better than our history taught us to expect. He stopped, looking up at Velis. Do you know what the Damocles Protocol is named after? An ancient human story about a sword hanging by a thread over a throne, a reminder that power held in check is not weakness, it's restraint. You destroyed 2 fleets, Velis said. Thousands dead. And they destroyed New Perth, Reeves replied, his voice hard. 3 million dead. We didn't strike first, Archon. We struck back. There's a difference. Where are the rest of the Vraxian fleets? Demanded Ambassador Krell of the Vraxian Empire, his voice shaking with rage. What have you done? Reeves turned to face him. Your 1st, 4th, and 5th fleets are still intact. They're being escorted to neutral space by our Wraith Corps. Any attempt at hostile action and they'll share the fate of the others. Your High Command has been offered terms. Immediate ceasefire, recognition of human colonial sovereignty, and reparations for New Perth. They have 12 hours to respond. And if we refuse, Krell snarled, then we demonstrate why humans studied war for 10,000 years before we ever left our homeworld. Reeves said quietly. You've seen 2 fleets disappear. We have 300 Wraith ships, and that's just the deterrent force. You don't want to see what else we've built. The chamber erupted in argument, fear, and fury. But beneath it all, a new understanding settled like winter frost. Humanity had never been weak. They had been kind, and the galaxy had mistaken kindness for weakness, silence for submission, patience for fear. 6 days later, the Vraxian Empire accepted Earth's terms. The Galactic Council formally recognized human colonial sovereignty in a historic vote. Several species offered formal apologies. Others began quietly reviewing their intelligence on human capabilities, horrified by what they'd overlooked. Ambassador Sarah Chen returned to the council chamber for the signing ceremony. She wore the same simple suit, carried herself with the same quiet dignity. But now when she spoke, the galaxy listened. We didn't want this, she said, addressing the assembled powers. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, not enemies. We shared our knowledge, our culture, our compassion. We meant every word, every gesture, every treaty we signed. She paused, meeting the eyes of every delegate. But we also remembered our history. We remembered what happens when peaceful people are faced with violence. So we prepared. We built the Damocles Protocol not as a weapon of conquest, but as a promise. We will not be victims. We will not be sacrificed. We will not watch our people burn while the galaxy debates politics. And now? Asked Archon Velis quietly. What becomes of these weapons? Of your Wraith ships? Sarah smiled. Not cold this time, but sad. They return to the shadows. We hope to never use them again. But they'll be there, Archon. Always there. A reminder that humanity chose peace not because we couldn't make war, but because we remembered what war costs. She looked around the chamber one last time. You wanted to know what happens when you corner something with teeth? Now you know. You get mercy once. You get a chance to be better. But you never get to forget that the mercy was a choice, not a weakness. The treaty was signed that day. The Vraxian Empire paid reparations and withdrew to their ancient borders. New Perth was rebuilt. Its 3 million dead remembered in monuments of light visible from orbit. And humanity? Humanity went back to being healers and teachers and friends to the galaxy. But now in the darkness between stars, wraith ships patrolled in silence, a sword hanging by a thread, a promise kept, a warning given. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity would always choose peace, but they would never again choose to be victims. And in the end, that made all the difference. The end.